It will come as no surprise to some of you to know that things are not looking quite so hot for EVs this year. I mean, it's not looking quite so hot for many different things and groups of people, but that's all for one kind of orangey reason and his enablers. But the planet is looking pretty damn hot this year. Again. Sorry, I digress. Despite the fact they're proven to be better for the environment, even when the electricity is drawn from a certain US autocrat's favoured source of planet-destroying pollution, fossil fuels, even when you eventually scrap them, even when you factor in particulates from the tyres, even if you make them star in a 70s blaxploitation film,
Rated R,
they're still cleaner. And I know that our comment section has become pretty full of folks, by which I mean bots, making helpful comments about how these pesky EVs should be replaced with good old-fashioned diesel, which is, of course, safer. Because they read a comment somewhere on a forum this one time with a celebrity who they decided were an expert in everything. But no. And despite the fact it's impossible to claim the planet isn't getting warmer without looking like a tinfoil-hatted weirdo who posts messages in all caps on r/AITA and gets responses saying, yeah, you very much are, Cariad, but still, EVs are cleaner. And while fossil fuel companies have been going all ghost face on charging networks for a while, buying them up and then carving them up or running them into the ground, EVs are still cleaner. So when Shell announced a few years back that it was buying charging network Volta and was going to rebrand it into a Shell-owned charging network for people who buy cars that don't run on the one thing that Shell has made literally... Okay, 1 second. This is going to be a rough estimate. Yeah, about $4.5 trillion since the turn of the century, the same year that the IPCC published its third climate change report that stated that most of the warming observed over the last 50 years is likely due to human activities, and 3 years after the Kyoto Protocol was signed. Yeah, that company, I, and Nikki, and everyone else at the channel went, oh shit. And this was also doubly bad for the team at the channel because, and if you haven't watched it, go and do so after this one. We were working on a video at the time about EV charging deployment and had specifically decided to go down and chat with Volta because it was one of the few charging station companies that engaged in intersectionality and planned their charging station deployments that way. So they were installing things that were not the fastest charging, but they ensured that charging stations were placed in disinvested communities, rather than just the traditional high-end swanky malls in swanky neighbourhoods of their competitors. And the day we were there, it was the day the acquisition had just been agreed to, but it wasn't public knowledge. And let's just say some of the team there were less than thrilled. They also, I fear, saw the writing on the wall. Add to that thanks to the US's innovative banana oligo-klepto-fascist aristocracy government throwing thousands of blades in the direction of the EV transition, we are starting to see legacy automakers circling around the blood in the water. So for those of us who like driving EVs and those of us who like having breathable air, what can we do? Being someone who, has the kind of history that I have, and being someone who looks like this, and no, I don't mean absolutely stunning, but thank you, that's very kind of you to say. I mean, melatonin advantaged. And being someone who used to work in the NHS, That's the UK's National Health Services, where a pay rise that consists of people clapping is considered adequate by the government, which, now I come to think of it, is odd. Because when I went to the bank and applauded, they said that wasn't an appropriate means of mortgage payment and claimed that clapping wasn't a real currency? I am somewhat familiar with grassroots actions, union movements, and, fighting for the rights of the disadvantaged. I'm not always consistent about getting involved, what with, work and life and spicy brain and building a house. But I do my best. So I understand if you've not been on the activism bus so far, but as they say, the time is coming to join the party. Perhaps, indeed, the Wenger bus is coming. Over the past few months, and perhaps coming as no surprise, given their reluctance to do anything EV-related, Toyota's announced a new family of gasoline engines. Volkswagen Audi's commitment to a zero-carbon future vaporized like so much gasoline, with Audi stating it won't nix gasoline engine production, as previously promised. GM's thrown $1 billion into the trash pile of a new V8 engine. And of course, Mercedes-Benz's CEO has whined that EVs will collapse the auto industry. Or at least that forcing automakers at what I can only presume to be gunpoint to make vehicles they simply cannot afford or have the intelligence to understand how to make is simply beyond the pale. That will lead to human sacrifice, to dogs and cats living together, to assorted mass hysteria. I mean, in that situation, who are you going to call? Well, anyway, the auto industry has started yet again to wail about how hard done by it is. And in an effort of Orwellian proportions that would make even Simon blush, pushing forward with advertising that portrays plug-in hybrids as being better, or at least more logical than those pesky, difficult-to-make, complicated EVs. Now, perhaps I'm being too harsh here. Sometimes I can be a bit of a bitch. I feel like if I was in an industry, let's say the fossil fuel industry, to pick one at random, and a giant conference in, 1968. And let's just say it's called the American Petroleum Institute Conference. And let's say we had a report presented that was called Sources, Abundance and Fate of Gaseous Atmospheric Pollutions, just to pick an example. And that report said that my products were going to destroy the planet and, our profits would vaporize, what with the social construct that is money being made valueless by the total collapse of society, and that such a collapse would definitely happen within a couple of lifetimes. I would like to think I would probably start planning ahead and try and transition away from that. For me, for ethical reasons, but also, for shareholder value reasons, because living in a Mad Maxian future isn't great for shareholder value, or, for shareholders remaining alive. But apparently, that's just me. Obviously, we've mentioned already that Shell's ripping out the Volta Level 2 chargers that enabled many in disadvantaged communities to charge at no or low cost. Volta had used their advertising revenue to cover the cost of charging there, and the US government's been hard at work throwing taxpayer money away by disabling and ripping out charging infrastructure, or at least encouraging automakers and truck companies to take court action against states like California for, quote, forcing them to make EVs and cleaner vehicles against their will. Just a few years after standing on a stage and proudly proclaiming how this was the future, well, it's time to become active. Grassroots active. And look, grassroots sometimes gets a bit of a bad name, mostly thanks to AstroTurf groups with names like, well, let's think of some totally real organisations. Things like the National Wetlands Coalition and the Global Climate Coalition and the Greening Earth Society. Yeah, all of those are AstroTurf groups. or sometimes names that sound exactly as dubious as they actually are, like Washington Consumers for Sound Fuel Policy, or the American Coalition for Clean Coal Energy. Sorry, my eyeballs just rolled out of my head just then. I just needed a second. Okay, so yes, there are organisations that exist to look like the exact opposite of what they are, but today we're going to give you some suggestions of organisations to get involved with who are doing the work to help keep EVs front and centre in the green transition. And yes, absolutely, I know what you're going to say. EVs aren't enough. And you're right. The EV transition alone won't keep humans in a cosy position on this planet. It won't be enough by itself by a long, long way. We need decarbonisation, and we need it yesterday. But it's a step, and since we're trying not to slide backwards into an abyss filled with tar pit oil and rodents of unusual size, then it's probably best we keep pushing forward. Alrighty, so it's a bit of a listicle today. We're going to go through some of the organisations that are still trying to do good in this dismal timeline, and the only way we get to drag ourselves away from this one into the one where Zephram Cochrane gets to take us into the universe in just 38 years' time is if we all knuckle down and do what needs to be done. Okay, in at number 1. Oh, sorry, this isn't Top of the Pops? Sorry, I thought I was Liz Bonin. Right, what grassroots organisation exists? And a quick heads up, we have worked with, or in one case been sponsored by, many of these groups over the past decade that we've been running in the US. And in one case, Nikki was given an award by one of them, but none of them paid for their place in this video. We are, as ever, independent and mostly viewer funded, something you can help with by joining our Patreon. Anyway, now that's out of the way, let's start with EV Noir. And like every organisation we're spotlighting today, we'll pop a link both in the down below and up on screen, so that you can play along at home by joining them. EV Noir is a group we've long been big fans of here at the channel, led by a team of diverse people including engineers, urban planners, transportation professionals, mobility researchers and all sorts of folks from the transport and planning sectors. They work on strategies to improve adoption of clean transportation and multimodal e-mobility solutions. They are also a team that welcomes and strives to represent EV owners across different socio-economic and racial backgrounds. Remember how we all agreed that EVs alone aren't enough? Well, here's a really important group that's advocating for e-bikes, e-transit, sustainable aviation, and EVs. It's a great place to start if you're looking for a way to ensure politicians are getting to hear from folks pushing for a more equitable transition rather than less. It's also a fantastic place if you, like me, feel the EV world is sometimes a little too lacking in diversity. Next up, we have Plug-in America. Back when Ford and Toyota were trying to kill EVs last time, a group of EV drivers ganged up to save EVs from the crusher. Eventually, that group morphed into Plug-in America, a 501c3 non-profit that's dedicated to educating the public, automakers and policymakers on the benefits of driving electric. If you want to get involved directly in advocacy, this is a great way to do it, because members from Plug-in America regularly speak at national and regional events. And of course, they work with the Sierra Club on National Drive Electric Week, along with our next stars of the show, the Electric Vehicle Association. The Electric Vehicle Association dates all the way back to 1967, when the height of technology was burning up the strip in your Enfield 8000. And being certainly one of the oldest, if not the oldest, grassroots organisation pushing for EV adoption in the US, they are more than familiar with the tricks that the auto industry pulls to claim that this transition is impossible, that no one wants it, that it can't or shouldn't be done. with EV drivers like you, EV enthusiasts, tech folks, and advocates all playing a part in the organisation. They work to educate communities, help design and lobby for EV-friendly policies, and if you're considering going electric, they can help you with finding the resources or people you need to talk to make the jump. Next, and because we are always accused of being US-centric, which is totally fair considering that I live in Washington State, which sadly is still in the US, and Nikki, despite being a triple citizen, is also living in the US, just a little bit south of me in Oregon, I'm going to throw in some groups that you should know about if you are elsewhere in the world. Okay, now, I know this is difficult for some of you, but there are, in fact, other countries out there. That wasn't directed at anyone in particular, because I know most of you are very intelligent sorts. But it maybe might have been directed to our favourite Shouty Bob, who still seems to think that Canada is part of America. And so's Greenland, and Iceland, and France. First, Canada. There's EVS, which is short for the EV Society. They've done a bunch of advocacy work, and their members, because I've met some of them, are truly wonderful and amazing. From BC to Newfie, they have local chapters in most metropolitan areas, although you're gonna struggle to find much in northern Canada. In Europe, you have AVER, which is a European-wide association that interestingly represents both the EV industry and drivers. They have member organisations across most European nations, some of which are massive in their own right, like the Norsk Elbilforening or the Norwegian EV Association. Given that Norway's roads are now predominantly EV, you might think that an association like Norsk Elbilforening is not required. But yeah, it is. Because much as I would like to pretend that it's not the case, where oil and fossil fuel interests lurk, so does disinformation and anti-EV sentiment. In the UK, you have the Battery Vehicle Society, which is lovely, but frankly more geared towards engineering sorts who like their garden sheds, and EVA England. They both serve different but important roles in the nation's shift towards EVs. Meanwhile, in the Southern Hemisphere, Australia has the AEVA, representing the interests of drivers, while the Electric Vehicle Council is focused on the interests of automakers and the EV industry specialists. In Aotearoa, New Zealand, there's Drive Electric, which is reasonably new, but it says it plans to focus on EV promotions. Again, it offers both EV industry and owner representation. And at this point, I would love to go through an entire list of groups in every part of the world, but that would take a long time, and to be honest, I don't actually know every group in every part of the world. Suffice to say, where there are largish groups of EVs, there's probably a local group near you you should consider joining. And where there are smallish groups of EVs, if there isn't a group, you could make one. Okay, so if you've got a great EV advocacy organisation, please drop them in the links below, down there. Or come tell us about them on the Discord. And as a bonus point, let's talk about the world at large, because like we keep saying, EVs are not enough by themselves. And let me be blunt. This is a tipping point for our society. We are at do or do not, there is no try. If we want to keep living on this little spinning blue rock and doing so comfortably, then we need to get off our collective tuchuses and push for everything, everywhere, all at once. So here's a few other organisations that you can think about supporting. The Sierra Club, the Natural Resources Defence Council, NRDC, and Environment Defence Fund, EDF. They are all long-standing, awesome non-profits fighting for a healthier planet. NRDC combines science, law, and activism to protect everything from clean air to endangered ecosystems, while EDF tackles climate change head-on with market-based solutions like cutting methane emissions and advancing clean energy. And of course, the Sierra Club is there pushing for clean energy and transportation. Together, they're all driving forward policies, holding polluters accountable, and making real-world impacts. Want to bring back hope for a cleaner future, one in which we do get to keep living pretty much the way we have? These are your friends and they need your support. And finally, support your local public radio and public broadcasting organisations. There's a reason Trump wants rid of groups that aren't beholden to him and wants control of the media. Unlike CBS, we don't really have a Trump-appointed media bias monitor yet. Although, from some of you, we've heard that the YouTube algorithm is doing the devil's work for him. But some of mainstream corporate media is conceding defeat. These people want you to feel overwhelmed. They want you to feel hopeless. They want you to accept defeat, because that's how authoritarians win. They make you think it's all pointless to fight. And I do accept that sometimes it feels that way. But it's not true. The thing is, these freaking weirdos who can't read a scientific paper and spend their quality time peeking under toilet doors, they are the minority. If we push, if we fight, if we remind them that we are here and we damn well care and this is not good enough, and we think empathy is a gift, not a sin, then they crawl back under their grotty little rock, shamefaced and chagrined, to wait for the next round of people they can tell their dirty little lies to. And we're at the point where we need to be damn sure that is the next stop on their journeys. Thanks for joining us today. And if you've got thoughts, make sure you leave them in our Discord room, on our Patreon page, down below, or you can reach out to us on Mastodon or Blue Sky. Thanks to the amazing list of people scrolling by on your screen right now. They're part of the massive community of supporters who make this channel possible, helping us through Patreon and YouTube, covering our bills, paying our team, and helping us to remain 100% independent. If you'd like to join them and see your name listed here and mispronounced horribly by me, just follow the links below. We've got options across a range of different price points from $1.50 US a month. A massive welcome to our newest supporters: Mwesi, Lei Magyar, MX Flounder, Nitmer, Thrill Nelly, Hernan Geraldo, Christopher Bloodworth, Eric Rouvier, Ronnie E. Bickers Jr., Brett Mason, George Pinney, Mega XLR, Robert Coghill, Peter Brodke, Gary Wood, Dessa Bird Traveller, Tim van der Loog, Mike Clark, Kyle Olin, Rob Hutchinson, Tony Leidig, Chris Nichols, Tempest, Adrian Atwater, Doug Lloyd, Mitch Rassner, and Brad. To join the list and get your shout out, become a paid Patreon member for your moment of fame, and you can even gift membership to someone else. If you'd like to support us with a one-off donation, you'll find links below to make Ko-fi and Bitcoin donations. And we even have an old-fashioned PO box you can reach us at, for the time being, addressed below. You'll also find links to our swag store, and if you are someone who has to shop on Amazon, please consider using our affiliate link so we get the commission, not Jeff Bezos. So we can continue to focus on making our content even better and reduce burnout, we're being a little freer with our release days, but plan on dropping new content every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday on our main channel, plus something on Sunday over on TE Take 2. If you want more, the algorithm that hates us thinks you should be watching this video, but this video is the one we'd like you to check out. Be kind, be awesome, be intentional, and don't forget to resist. Keep evolving!